Well, hello everybody. Let's try this again. Welcome to Lunch Break Live, real talk about obesity, food addiction, recovery, and what's really eating you. I am Cari Cruz, and on today's show, are you unhappy because you're fat or fat because you're unhappy? Ooh, this ought to be a real corker, huh? Now, why on earth do I have the right to be talking about this? Why would I be dropping that F-bomb and saying such obnoxious things? Well, because I understand the feeling and I said those things, and that is because I am a 2007 gastric bypass post-op living life in recovery from obesity and compulsive overeating as twice the woman in half the body. So I have a lot of thoughts and experience on this subject. But before I go there, I want to find out who's here. All right, so let's see. Let me zero in on this. Nancy, welcome. So glad you're here. And Sarah, hey, Marcus, I haven't seen you in a couple days. I was thinking about you earlier today. Isn't that funny? I was like, I haven't seen Marcus in a few days, and if I don't see him today, I'm going to reach out and say hi. So I'm glad I didn't have to reach out. All righty. Glad you found me after our first failed effort here on Facebook Live, but you know how it goes. Sometimes it gets a little bit glitchy. Mom, you found me. Welcome back. I'm so glad that you're here. Yeah, the first one didn't go so well. All right, then. I already did my intro, so you'll have to watch it again, Mom, okay? All right, so listen, let's talk about you guys here. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to shoot me a sad face if you have ever looked in the mirror and said, I'm fat, okay? All right. I'm seeing thumbs up right now, meaning I'm assuming that means, yep, I've said that I can identify with that, pretty sure, right? Okay, there's a sad face, yeah. I'm fat. We've said it, right? All right, here's another one. Shoot me a sad face if you've ever thought to yourself, you know, I would just be so much happier if I weren't fat. What do you think? Shoot me some sad faces if you can identify with that. Yeah. Ooh, mad face. Yeah, right? Okay, hey, Melissa, welcome in. Right. Okay, so I'm just asking everyone if they have ever looked in the mirror and said, I'm fat, or if they ever said to themselves, you know what, I would just be so much happier if I weren't fat. All right? All right, that's where we're started. All right, so let's be really clear. Let's put it out there. Obviously, the title of this show is going to make some people very, very cranky. And they're going to say, you know what? This is so not PC. That is just so rude. You dropping F-bombs like that. But the reality is this is how we talk to ourselves, isn't it? And look, I am not here to say popular things. I'm just not. Because you know what? Popular things aren't always true. And they don't always help either. Maybe they're just nice, but they don't help, right? I am not here to be mean, though. And you know that if you've watched my show, for longer than 2 minutes, you will know that I am not mean. I am just here to share my beliefs and my experiences with obesity so that you'll know you're not alone. And I'm also here to share my beliefs and experiences with recovery so you'll know you can be well. That's why I do what I do. Again, I am not about being PC because when I was beating myself up for all of those years, I was not being politically correct. And guess what? No one was correcting me. So that's the reality. We have to, I have to reach you where you live, and if you're hearing this, it's because you understand, because you've said it to yourself and you felt it. All right. So if by chance this is your first time here, I would ask you to be patient. Hang in there, hear me out all the way to the end of the show, because I think you may just find some hope and some healing, all right? Okay, so with that said, if you guys heard my Live from the 405 promo for the show this morning on the way in, you heard me say that, before I started treating my obesity, I never looked in the mirror and said, oh man, I'm obese. I never said that, ever. I said, I'm fat. Absolutely, I said, I'm fat. And it's what I said, and it's totally what I believed. Of course it is, all right? I also said that I would be happy if I wasn't fat. So I figured that bariatric surgery would result in an absolute, complete, and total change of my life, and I would just be happy, right? Okay, well, the problem is, here's the crux of it. See, I lost weight, and I learned that even though I wasn't happy being fat, I wasn't unhappy because of my fat. As a matter of fact, a lot of the reason that I was fat was because because of my unhappiness. Do you see how that worked for me? Now, don't get me wrong, okay? Obesity is a very complicated disease. I am not distilling it just down to this happy, sad kind of thing. And guess what? Not everyone who's overweight is unhappy. Not everyone looks at this and says, I will be happy when I am not overweight. And I do understand that the goal is to develop a healthier understanding and a healthier dialogue with ourselves about the disease of obesity. I get that, but I wasn't there. You know what? When I was active in my obesity, I was not saying things like I have fat. I wasn't. I was saying I am fat. Everybody has fat. Everybody. It's part of your body makeup, okay? It's the percentage of fat. So maybe I could have looked in the mirror and said, I have a lot of fat, but that's just not it. No. I said I am fat, and I defined myself by the amount of fat that I had. I was very, very mean to myself, and I have a feeling I'm not alone, by the way. I have a feeling a lot of other people were mean to me too, right? Because that's how society is. But I have a feeling you guys have been really mean to yourselves. And here's the thing. I had a fat head. Not the size of my head relative to the size of my body. I had a fat head. It was very fat up in there. And that means that I overfed things that ate me up. So if I hurt, I ate. And if I didn't think I was capable or valuable, I ate. So in other words, I contributed to the severity of my disease. I contributed to my unhappiness, didn't I? Without even realizing. Okay, so now I'm going to set that aside for just a moment. Okay, I'm going to set it aside. Now, I originally titled this talk on the way in this morning. You might have seen it. It's not about the fat. Okay? Because so much of what I blamed on my weight had absolutely nothing to do with my weight and everything to do with my humanity, the fact that I was a person. Okay? So if I was unhappy or scared or lonely or frustrated or helpless or feeling worthless, it is because I am a human, and sometimes humans feel that stuff. Oh yeah, and I was fat because I wasn't treating my obesity. See? Do you understand that connection there, okay? So I blamed my unhappiness on my weight instead of looking at the fact that it's because I'm human and I'm not dealing with things well. So back to the story, okay, for a minute. Let's go back for a minute. I love Born This Way. You guys know that. That's that show on A&E that follows a group of people and their families who are affected by Down syndrome, okay? Don't worry if you guys watch the show and you're not caught up and you haven't seen it. There's no spoiler alerts here, so I promise I'm not going to go there, all right? But I love that program because basically the people that are on the show are real. And I can identify with them. Why? I don't have Down syndrome. How can I identify with the people on the show? Because they're human beings first and foremost, okay? So basically, they're real people who, in addition to coping with, now get this, it is an incurable and permanent condition, okay? Down syndrome, it is incurable and it is permanent. It can never change, all right? So in addition to dealing with all that stuff, they're also trying to cope with life. Okay, so they face everything from like adult responsibilities, how to be independent and pay bills, interpersonal relationships, you know, how can I date? How can I have friendships? But they also deal with things like obesity and mental illness and even typical societal pressures. So not just the societal pressures of having to live with Down syndrome, but also what many might not recognize as typical societal pressures. Okay, so it would be very easy to say that all the challenges they face, all of their hardships, all of their struggles are because of their Down syndrome. It would be very easy to say that, but it's not true. A lot of what they deal with is because they're humans, okay? Even though their ability to cope is compromised by their condition. So look, again, not minimizing Down syndrome, not simplifying it, not trying to even correlate them or make equivocate, you know, with obesity, because their condition absolutely compromises their ability to deal with very human stuff. But what I want to convey is it is not because of the Down syndrome that they are dealing with these very real human issues, but their Down syndrome can complicate their ability to deal with things, okay? Absolutely. But I think there are similarities between people who are afflicted by the disease of obesity right? And people with Down syndrome. So where the untreated disease can complicate our ability to cope. Okay, so if we're not treating our obesity, if we're not, and thank God I have a treatable disease, if I am not treating it, then my ability to cope with life is compromised. Okay, it is complicated. So the things that we have to cope with, in other words, are because we're human beings, not just because of our disease, which again is not to say that we don't have to cope with things because of our disease, because of course we do. All right. Totally tricky. I get it. And again, I do understand that not everyone who deals with obesity is unhappy or thinks that their unhappiness is solely because of their obesity. I get that. Okay. But many, many, many of us do feel that way. So the point of today's show, though, is not to make you happy. That's not my goal. I can't do that. I cannot make you happy. So that's not the goal of the show. But it is to open your eyes to the possibility that maybe, just maybe, your unhappiness is not a result of your weight. Okay? Even though your weight is definitely a reason for your unhappiness. Okay? Look, I wasn't happy with my weight. It's very hard. It's very challenging. It's very complicated. It's a struggle to live life in a body that is not the same size as, an average sized world. In other words, we don't fit in seats the same way, right? We struggle to climb stairs. Our clothing doesn't fit the same way or look the same way on us. It's more expensive because there's more material. It's just harder for us. So our lives are more complicated as a result of our weight, of our disease, of our condition, just as someone with Down syndrome's life is going to be complicated as a result of their condition, all right? And so there is a reason to be unhappy. But the important part of this is that all of your unhappiness is not because of your weight, even though you think it is. That's an obvious place to look. It just is. I mean, it makes perfect sense, right? Because you think to yourself, I'm so unhappy with my weight that if I didn't have to deal with this weight, I'd obviously be happy. See, it's a logical conclusion. All right. I believe that active, untreated, okay, which is specifically here morbid obesity, not just moderately or obese, just in the obese category. I'm talking about active, untreated, morbid obesity is a sign that something is wrong. But it's not just something physically wrong. I think there's something wrong with our mental, emotional, and spiritual selves. The relationship we have with ourselves, there is something terribly, terribly wrong and imbalanced, all right? But we all tend to focus on the physical self, the weight. See? So in other words, instead of looking at our mental unhappiness, our emotional unhappiness, our spiritual unhappiness, we are focused on our physical unhappiness. Do you get it? All right. And then we exclude all of the other stuff. We don't pay attention to any of that other stuff. We just look at how much we weigh. And in our minds, many of us conclude in the simplest terms, fat equals unhappy, thin equals happy. That was my math. That may not be yours. I get it, okay? And again, as I always say, you know what? If this doesn't fit, it's okay. I'm not going to force it on you, okay? I'm not going to force it to fit. But if it does fit, consider what I'm talking about, all right? Because it could help, all right? So here's my challenge, right? Just think about this for a second. When I say fat equals unhappy, thin equals happy, and that was my conclusion, all right? Ask a thin person if they're happy because they're thin, right? Are you happy because you're thin? They're probably going to look at you like you're crazy. Like, what? What do you mean, am I happy because I'm thin? What? Probably doesn't even occur to them. It doesn't even compute, doesn't even equate. The two things, am I happy? Because they don't know what it's like to be fat. Probably, okay? They're like, well, what? I don't get it. Okay. But if you ask a fat person if they're unhappy because they're fat, what do you think they're going to say? Yes. So if you ask a thin person if they're happy because they're thin, they're not likely to say yes. But if you ask a fat person if they're unhappy because they're fat, they're probably going to say yeah. Do you see how that works? Do you see? Are you beginning to see how this doesn't really add up, does it? It doesn't make a lot of sense. And yet, how many people challenge this concept? How many people even think to ask the question, does that make sense? Is it truth? Okay? And I think it's good to know when things are true and when they're not, because we can deal with things a lot better if I look at that and I go, you know what, that's just not true. That's not even true. Wow, that makes it a lot easier to deal with it, doesn't it? Okay, just a thought. Still have to work on it, still have to deal with it. But by realizing that it's not true, I think that gives you a lot more power. All right, this is not about rightness or wrongness. I think that's super duper important for me to put out there, okay? It's about peacefulness, and it's about living life on life's terms, no matter what you weigh, okay? What was it on my wall a couple days ago? Somebody said you can be a food addict and be thin. You know, you don't have to be obese and be a food addict. Well, guess what? You can live in peace and you can live life on life's terms no matter what you weigh, okay? That's really super important because it's not about the scale. It's not about addressing frustration. Wait, let me rephrase that. This is about not addressing frustration with food, but instead addressing the frustration. Did you follow that? Okay. Don't address the frustration with food, address the frustration. That's the difference here. We always address it with food, don't we? I'm frustrated, I eat. How about if I face the frustration and look at that? This is about not feeding the fear, but rather facing the fear. I always fed the fear. I'm scared, I eat. I'm afraid, I don't know what to do, I'll eat. Okay? Face the fear. What is this all about? Do I have a reason to be afraid? What would happen if? Okay? This is about not eating because we're lonely, but rather asking if we're isolating ourselves. That's deep, right? I'm lonely. Am I lonely because I isolated myself and kept myself off? Maybe so. Maybe there's a really big part of that, okay? I don't want anybody around me. I don't want to be seen. I don't want to go out in public. I don't want pictures of me. I don't want to hang out with anybody. I'm too embarrassed. I don't want to be in public. I'm lonely. Well, of course I am, because I've isolated myself. So we've got to look at that. That's a source of unhappiness, isn't it? That has nothing to do with our weight. It has to do with our isolation. We could say our isolation was caused by our weight. Okay, but that's not a direct correlation. I am lonely because I'm not with others. I am not with others because I've isolated myself. I've isolated myself because of my weight. Do you see? All right. You have heard it before, so this is nothing revolutionary here. Okay, wherever you go, there you are. You've heard it. Maybe you haven't thought much about it. Maybe you have. I don't know. But here's what that means, okay? Unless you find solutions, you take your problems with you. So nothing changes. So in other words, if I lose weight, I'm still me. I'm still in here. So I'm going to bring my problems with me. I'm just going to have a smaller body to carry them with. You know what I mean? I'm going to have to pack them all into smaller jeans. Big deal. Same problems, same person, even if I look different on the outside, which is living proof that it is not just about the physical, is it? It's the mental, emotional, and spiritual. All right. So think about this for just a second. If you didn't communicate well with your spouse before you lost weight, do you think you're magically going to communicate well with your spouse after you lose weight? Magically, just boom. Hey, you know what? Because I was unhappy, I'll lose weight and I'll be happy. Because I didn't communicate well when I was fat, I'll lose weight and then I'll communicate. No, it doesn't follow at all. All right. If you had a negative self-image about yourself before losing weight, you won't necessarily have a positive self-image about yourself after losing weight. You know what? I feel terrible about myself because I'm a loser. Okay, granted, we feel better when we lose weight. Yay me, success, success. Okay, but at some point, what happens when you stop losing weight and the accolades fall away and people stop complimenting you and paying attention to you and noticing you? Then what? Then what? You're you. You're you, just in a smaller package, aren't you? So that long-term, that real, genuine self-image doesn't necessarily magically change just because it's in a different package. If you didn't stand up for yourself before you lost weight, you're not going to magically do it after you lose weight. You're just not all of a sudden going to stand up for yourself. More importantly, if you avoided your feelings before you lose weight, do you think you're going to magically find them and just all of a sudden know how to deal with feelings? Woo! How about this? If you have anger issues before you lose, do you think you're just not going to have those after you lose? No. Guess what's going to be waiting for you after you lose weight? You. You're going to be right where you left you, okay? Now, that is not to say that losing weight doesn't help you to be able to make these changes, because it can and it does, especially if that was in the way of, right? How many of us think, I don't feel comfortable putting myself out there because I don't like the way I look. Well, if that's not in the way, then I'm more comfortable putting myself out there. Okay, then you can work on your interpersonal communication skills. You can work on your self-esteem. You can work on dealing with and facing your emotions, because now you're saying, ooh, guess what? You know what? The weight wasn't it, because the weight's not here. Now, what am I left with? I'm left with me. I got to work on me. Okay, that's what happened with me. You know what? I couldn't blame the weight anymore. So I had to face all of that other stuff that was still waiting for me there. Okay. So, I think maybe the biggest way that losing weight helps is to show that weight isn't the problem you think it is. Whoopsie. Yeah. I thought it was a big problem, but really not. Because I learned that my pant size did not determine my happiness. The number on the scale did not determine my joy. Ultimately, here's what works, okay? How I treated myself mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically determined about how happy, or more importantly, how joyful I got to be. Do you see that connection? You guys are saying, how? I read on the wall today where you were saying, well, that's a really good question. So how do I fix that? I hope you're listening. I hope you're hearing the things that I'm saying. I hope you're realizing that this isn't just about physical self, that we need to be focusing on how we're dealing with life on life's terms, which is what I talk about absolutely every day on the show. All right. Recovery helps you to see joy. And it's usually right there next to the peace, the courage, and the wisdom. Not surprisingly. They all hang out together. All right. So here's what I think. All right. You guys can get mad at me for using the word fact. You can. Absolutely no problem. Or you can find the truth for yourself, whatever that looks like. Some of us do not have the same unhealthy attitudes about our obesity, but many, many do. Some of us have developed healthy attitudes about obesity, but many, many have not. So my goal is actually to help you develop an attitude of recovery that says, my happiness is not determined by my weight, but my weight is certainly affected by my happiness. Okay? All right. Boy, there's a little bit of food for thought for a day, huh? What do you guys think? All right. So listen, a couple of things, very important announcements. I need to thank my very newest patrons, Tanya, Regina, and Nancy. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for becoming my newest patrons. Tanya, very important. I will spell your name correctly on your new certificate. I promise. Whoopsie. Okay, that's what happens when you try to put something together at 5 a.m. But here's the thing you should probably understand. Recovery, not going to improve your eyesight, and it's not going to eliminate typos. It just... Whoops, I'll fix it. I'll make it right and I'll get you a new one. Anyway, the good news is, here's what recovery does do. It makes it easier to humbly admit shortcomings like misspelling someone's name on their patron certificate and then move on, which I will do. And I'm sure you will too. All right, you guys. And speaking of patrons, if you are interested in becoming a patron of the program, just as 11 others of you have, all you have to do is go over to Patreon, add an E in there, patreon.com/real recovery, because I am creating real talk about real recovery. That is what we really, really do around here absolutely every day. And with about 5 minutes to go, I'm going to scan back through your comments to see what sorts of things that you guys are talking about. Let's see here. I love you too, Mama. I saw that pop up, but I just didn't respond. All right. And Marty, my fellow redhead there. Yeah, I know. We know, right? We know what we know. Redheads know something that non-redheads just don't. Jerry, I'm so glad you came back. Marnie, I haven't seen you in a while. Marnie, I haven't seen you. I'm so glad you're here. Nancy, you're back from the Bahamas. I saw your comment that United or American, you flew American and made it home safely. Yay! And yes, I did order my Skin So Soft. And it says it's on its way. Avon told me it's on the way. All right, Trisha, and thank you for being here as well. Marcus, yes, but that's not the only reason why I was unhappy. Oh, of course not. Absolutely, you're right. And here's the thing, many of us hyperfixate, many of us hyper focus on and believe that the entirety, the totality, the sole reason for our unhappiness is our weight. It's only when we step back and realize, oh, no, I have a lot of other reasons to be happy. Either because I haven't been dealing with things in a healthy way, I've been avoiding things, I've been ignoring things, I've been putting up with a lot of crap. I've been letting people mistreat me, because I didn't think highly of myself and I let them get away with that. I didn't stand up for myself. I stuck in a really unhealthy relationship because I didn't think I could do better. And that hurt me. Okay, things like that, right? I rejected friends. I isolated myself and said I don't want to have friends, and I'm not going to participate in social situations. That hurt me. You're absolutely right, Marcus. There are a lot of reasons to be unhappy, and that is the point of the show. There are a lot of reasons to be unhappy that have nothing to do with your weight, but guess what? There are a lot more reasons to be happy. And those also don't have to do with your weight. Although the NSVs, the non-scale victories, the things that we are now able to do that fill our lives with newfound joy, those are reasons to be happy. Absolutely. All right. And hey, for me, not having to deal with the disease of obesity as something that's going to kill me imminently, that's a reason for happiness. I'll tell you that right there. Okay. Marcus says, as I release when I lost the weight, that was only part of it. As you realized when you lost the weight, that was only part of it. You're exactly right. You're exactly right. And I think sometimes, we only realize it when. We only realize it when we realize it. We only know when we know. The good news is I'm hopeful that many of you who have maybe not thought about it in this way can think about it now. Maybe you'll be able to realize it sooner. All right. Asking fat people if they are unhappy, they will most likely say yes. You are correct. Most likely they will say yes, they are unhappy, and they will probably say it's because of their weight. I mean, come on, let's be honest. Who would be happy with a disease? Who would be happy? I mean, I think if you talk to someone who has Down syndrome, if they had a choice, they probably wouldn't say, yeah, I'm happy with it. But they have accepted it. Many of these people have accepted it and said, this is who I am. This is my life. Okay? So I've accepted my obesity. This is my life. And thank you, God, again, that it is treatable for me. Okay? And you're right, though. It comes down to acceptance. Hi, Marie. I'm glad you made it in. I hope you get to go back and watch the beginning of the show. And Nancy, okay, I think I said hi to you earlier on. And Sarah, going to Florida tomorrow to see my daughter and grandson. I will watch you sometime during the day. I hope so. Oh, bless you, too. And I will miss you while you're gone, Sarah. All right, you guys. So listen, I am going to sign off. Wow, great show, right? Lots to think about. I am eager to hear your reactions and responses and feedback as ever, because you guys are brilliant. You are deep, smart, you're deep thinkers, smart people with a lot of courage and a willingness to stand up to your obesity and say enough is enough. I am done being ruled by the disease of obesity. I am done being ruled by my addiction. I am stronger than I think I am, and I have the courage to stand up and say, with support, with help, with guidance, with compassion, with information, I can do this thing. That's what I want for you guys. All right? So listen, I'm signing off now because it's just getting later. Have courage, you guys. Seek peace. Embrace joy. And above all, live your recovery. Remember, you can't stop feeding what's eating you if you don't know what's eating you. I will see you guys tomorrow. Remember to share the show. Bye.